craving a brisket for quite a while now. I hadn't had much luck finding what I wanted. I went to go pick this up the other night knowing I wanted to do it. They had one brisket there. It was 13.8 pounds. Beautiful marbling. I mean, it is just beautiful. I don't know who trimmed it, but they did an awesome job. Doesn't leave much for me to do to get this cleaned up. I am a little concerned at how closely this was trimmed on the back. We like about a 1/4 inch, and other than right here, it's a little thin. So we'll clean this area up. Not going to be too careful about taking too much off because I'm going to make burgers out of this brisket. We'll freeze it and grind it up later. All right, guys, we went ahead and trimmed this up. I didn't want to put you through watching me take all this apart. I'm very picky and very fussy, so it took a while to get it cleaned up the way I wanted it. If you can notice here, guys, this marbling is incredible. The marbling in the point, I've never seen that in a choice cut of meat. It's awesome. They didn't leave as much fat on the back of this as I would have liked. Took some off of here. I think we're trimmed up about where we want to be. So the next step is we're going to inject this. So now that we've got the brisket completely trimmed and ready to go, we're going to mix up an injection for it. We're going to use about a tablespoon of Worcestershire. We're going to use about a tablespoon of soy sauce. And guys, I go really light with the beef broth or the beef bouillon. I don't want my brisket to taste like a roast. So we go ahead, I'm going to use about a 1/2 teaspoon to 2 cups of water. We'll get this on the stove, bring it to a small boil, let it sit and cool off, and it'll be ready to inject. Now that our injection broth has finished, it's cooled down, we're going to go ahead and inject this brisket. Not as much on the point as the flat. We're going to go about 1 inch, guys. Give it a good poke. All the way through the flat. I know better. I should be keeping my hand over this as I do this. It does tend to squirt everywhere. If you inject that, you can see that meat plumping up. So it's just going to help this retain a little bit more moisture. Just remember, guys, what I said about too much of that broth. It really will make your brisket taste like a roast. So now that we've injected this, we really aren't going to have to use any kind of a binder. This broth will definitely hold it. So now that we've injected, we're going to put some rub on this. We're going real simple. There's a lot of rubs out there, guys, that you can look up and see what works for you. I'm a basic salt and pepper and garlic guy. So this is some Kinders. It's called Master Salt. It's salt and garlic and butter. Brisket's a big cut, guys, so don't be afraid of using too much. Get that on the sides. Get that all patted in nicely. Now we've got some 14 mesh organic black pepper. It's not as coarse as I'd like, but it's fairly coarse. So we're going to put some pepper on this, and again, this is a big cut of meat, guys. Do not be afraid to put your seasonings on it. That injection is working real well as a binder. This will give us a real nice crust when we're all said and done here. Go ahead and turn this over. Pick up some of that. Don't waste it. Salt and garlic. And we'll give this side some more black pepper. All right, we're gonna let this sit for probably a good 45 minutes to an hour. Let everything get all happy together, and we'll get this on the grill. So after injecting and putting our rub on the brisket, we've got it on the Pit Boss now. We got it set at 200 degrees. We added some competition blend pellets in our smoke tube. Just going to get that little bit richer smoke flavor, I'm hoping. So we're going to let this go for about 2.5, 3 hours. We'll check when the bark sets up and get ready to spritz it. We're going to use some pure apple juice, fresh squeezed, and some apple cider vinegar. We'll keep this moist throughout the cook. We're looking to get to about 165 degrees, and we're going to wrap this thing up. And hey, just so I can start some arguments, this is fat side down, guys. I know everybody argues, I prefer fat side down. We started this at a little after 9. We're at the 3-hour mark right now. This bark has set up very nicely. That's going to be some killer bark. So now we're going to hit this with some apple juice, fresh squeezed apple juice, fresh juiced apples, I guess, and some apple cider vinegar. At this point, until we hit the 165, we'll probably give this a good spritz every hour or so. So I'm hoping another 3 or 4 we'll be able to wrap. We're looking for that 165 internal temperature. So you can see the sun is starting to come up. I figured about 7.5 to 8 hours on this cook to get this to 165, and we are at 165, and we are almost 8 hours to the minute. Been at 200 degrees. At 3 hours, that bark set up nicely, so we've been spritzing it every hour since. We're at 165. We're just going to give this a quick shot of some spritz. We're going to pull this off and get it in the wrap. Looks beautiful. The color is amazing. My apologies. I shot some video of wrapping this brisket, and once I got it wrapped up and put back on the smoker, I realized that the camera hadn't been turned on while I was trying to record this. So it is on the smoker. We cranked it to 225. We'll get it to 200 degrees and start probing for tenderness. The brisket has been wrapped and in the smoker now right at 4 hours. We just hit 200 degrees on internal. It's been holding 225 pretty steady on the pit. So now we're going to probe this for tenderness. And we're getting a little bit of resistance. Not a lot. I think I'd like to give that a few more minutes. Right here in the center, where the point in the flat meat, it's telling me we're at 191, 192. Yeah, we're still 190 pretty much everywhere on this. It's not bad, but I'd like a little less resistance. So we're going to let this go probably another 20 minutes, and we'll get back with you. After probing this at 200 degrees, we put it back in. Wasn't quite where I wanted it. After an all-night cook, I don't want to rush this. After another half hour, we're at 203. I think that should be where we need to be. We'll just double check real quick for some tenderness. Oh, that's much better. That's like butter. We're about 195 according to this probe. Yeah, we're right where we need to be. So we're going to pull this off, put it in a cooler covered with some towels. At minimum 2 hours, we'll let this rest really well. So after 4.5 hours, we put some towels in the bottom of this cooler, some foil lining just so we don't get the towels soaked with the juice coming off that brisket wrapped. We're going to top that off with another piece of foil and some towels. We'll leave it in this cooler, minimum 2 hours, guys. I'm probably shooting 2.5 hours. We'll see you when we're ready to slice this up. Our brisket's been wrapped for about 2.5 hours in the cooler. Boy, it's looking really nice. It smells so good. So remember, guys, your grain on a brisket, the flat is running this direction, but the point is running this direction. So what we're going to do, we're going to use this point to make burnt ends with. So let's get some slices and see how we did. Oh, that's like butter. Oh my gosh. Now we're getting to the point where we're going to make the burnt ends. So normally I would turn this and cut it in half and do my slices that way, but it's not going to matter because we're going to cube it. But let's get a chunk out of the center here. Oh, look at that. Nice, nice. We have a clapper. Oh my gosh. That just pulls apart. That is amazing. So now, we're going to go ahead and slice this point up. We're going to do 1-inch cubes. Oh my gosh. Can you see that? Look at that. Unbelievably nice. Well worth the effort. So we're going to get this cut up for our burn ends. I'm going to make a lot of burn ends. I've got a lot of people waiting for them. Now we're going to take those 1-inch slices and we're going to slice those the other direction and make 1-inch cubes out of them. Oh my gosh. Unbelievable. So good. Couple more pieces here. My buddy Marshall was over here last night as this was all getting done, He's back here this morning to see how we did. Let's give him a little taste of this and see what he thinks.
Man, that is incredible.
It sure came out beautiful. It's nice and juicy. All that pepper on that bark gave us such a nice flavor. So now we're going to get these burnt ends ready and get them back on the smoker. All right, so we've got our brisket sliced up. It's turned out so great. Now we're going to make some burnt ends. Very simple process. We're not going to get too carried away. We're going to put a little bit of brown sugar. Not a whole lot, just enough to give us a little extra sweetness. And then we're using Jones barbecue sauce. If you've never tried this, it's really good. It's Kansas City style, got a nice vinegary taste to it. So we're just going to cover this lightly. We don't want to get too carried away. Once we get that covered, we're just going to mix everything together. We'll put this on the smoker at about 250, and that will caramelize that brown sugar and the barbecue sauce. It's like meat candy. Based on how that point tastes right now, this is going to be some great burnt ends. All right, so we're going to put this back on the smoker about 250, and we'll check it in about half an hour. So this is the final stage, guys. We had these burnt ends on at 250 for a little over half an hour. That sauce just caramelized really nice. This stuff is just so tender. Oh, that's what I'm talking about right there. That point was just so well marbled, came out perfectly.